Welcome to the Pet Photographers Club. Tune in as experts share their insights to help grow your business with higher sales, creative marketing, and kick-arse business strategies. Now on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Season 14, Episode 11 of the Pet Photographers Club. I'm Kirsty McConnell and today I'm chatting with Craig and Charlotte of Unleashed Education and of course the new hosts of the International Pet Photographer of the Year Awards. So welcome to the show, Craig and Charlotte. It's nice to have you guys here. Maybe you guys can go ahead and introduce yourself really briefly as to who you are and why you're here.
Okay, well, I'll go first. So my name is Charlotte Reeves. I have been a pet photographer for 16 years and I've been teaching for 10. And with my partner in crime, Craig, we run Unleashed Education, which is an online learning platform specifically for pet photography, shooting and editing. So we've got online courses, we do mentoring, workshops, all that fun stuff. Craig, over to you.
Yep. And I am Craig Turner-Bullock and I'm based in New Zealand. I've been a pet photographer since a long time ago, 2001, a long time. And yeah, I have been teaching for a number of years as well. And yeah, we are doing some fun stuff with the creative side of pet photography in Unleashed Education. Yeah.
Awesome. So I've got you guys on the show today because most of the listeners probably know, but as of this year, the two of you have taken over hosting the International Pet Photographer of the Year Awards. And with that, of course, you've made some changes to make it even better than ever before. And I wanted to chat all about it today so that we can answer some questions that might have arisen from that and dive into a little bit of conversation around the awards as well. So first of all, maybe I'll do it actually. This is a bit weird. Normally I get you guys to do it, but maybe I can give a little bit of a backstory about the awards and then you can take it over.
So it makes sense.
So for those of you who are not aware, the Pet Photographer of the Year Awards was created by us here at the Pet Photographers Club a few years ago now. We hosted them as kind of a fun thing that we started a few years back, not really realizing how big it would grow or how much of a mammoth task it would be to undertake. But we were really proud of what we created. We had, entry numbers were doubling year after year. We had amazing judges panel line up each year and judges donated their time to make that happen. You two have both been on that panel before. And we received lots of international recognition through that as well. I mean, we ended up in heaps of big newspapers and magazines, and that was really exciting for those who were shortlisted and also for the club as well. Last year, there were some big changes here at the Pet Photographers Club, and with those changes, it was just not even close to possible to keep on running the awards. As I mentioned earlier, they're a mammoth task. It would take us 6 months to organise the awards, and that was certainly something I wasn't able to keep doing moving forward. And so I thought about what are the options? And, it is the biggest awards for our industry. It would just be so sad to just have to shut it down because of time. And so I thought about what could happen with the awards. And well, it made sense to me to offer it to these two because, Craig and Charlotte, as I said earlier, they specialize in helping pet photographers in the creative side of their business. So with shooting and editing, whereas here at the club, we really focus on business. So actually it aligns much better with what they're offering there than what I'm doing over here. And so somehow I convinced these guys to take it on. And now it's entering the International Pet Photographer of the Year Awards are entering a new era under their leadership, I suppose you would say, as the new hosts. So that's about the history of the awards, but we're here today to talk about the future of the awards. So guys, what's happening? You've made some pretty big changes, but yeah, first of all, why did you want to take it on?
I'll leave that up to Craig to answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, this industry is so specialized, and having such a niche of a specialized subject, I think we need to celebrate that and showcase this industry to the world outside, you know, that pet photography is a thing, that animals are incredible, and that there are some really talented artists within this space. And so just to continue to raise that awareness and celebrate those people doing awesome work.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that was like a perfect segue for me because actually it's a really interesting point that you made, that this is a specialized niche, specialized field. And I was going to ask you guys, like, why should somebody enter the International Pet Photographer of the Year Awards rather than their general, like, local professional photography awards? And maybe you've already touched on it just then, but do you want to go into that a little bit deeper, either of you?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to enter a wide variety of awards if you can. I know myself and Craig also enter the more general awards, I guess, with different categories. Sometimes they have pet and animal categories, sometimes they don't, and sometimes you need to enter portrait. But those awards are definitely good to enter as well. But unfortunately, a lot of the time you're dealing with the judges not actually being specialist pet photographers themselves. So the scoring that you get and the feedback that you get is not necessarily coming from someone who is an expert in their field. So that's what I really love about having this really niche, specialized sort of form in the awards, because all of the judges, we've got 16 judges this year, all of them are specialist pet photographers. So when they're looking at your images, they know pet photography, they know what to look for, they know all about expression and body language and all the things that more general or other genres of other photographer might not sort of be aware of. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to definitely enter both sorts of awards, but ours are pretty unique in that way, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the specialist knowledge of the judges is the most important part of this whole system for me. I think that you're going to get feedback from experts, industry leaders in this niche.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to touch on that shortly and about the feedback that you guys have introduced this year. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that about what you were saying about the judges. I remember years ago now entering our APA, which doesn't exist anymore, the Australian Professional Photography Awards. And one of my images was a pet image, and it was really interesting to hear the feedback from the judges on that, because it got debated. It was just really interesting because they were clearly not pet photographers. All they could judge it on was, professional practices, shooting technique, this kind of thing. But they were like shocked and in awe, like in a good way, of that I was able to even capture this image. And so I think actually got awarded higher than it probably should have because of that.
That's nice. That works out well.
It did work in my favor because, for them it was like, wow, how did you get these two like mum and pup to sit side by side like that, and on and on. They're not pet photographers, so for them it was just like amazing. In our awards, which are now your awards, definitely wouldn't have done so well because that really helped. So yeah, it's really interesting to compare, I think, these different approaches, I suppose. And like you said, I think it's still certainly valid to enter other types of awards, but you'll get something different out of those because, they
Definitely.
were really harsh on some other areas that maybe we wouldn't be in pet photography. So yeah, I'm really glad that you guys are keeping it going, that's for sure. Now, earlier you mentioned judges. There are 16 this year, which is a big change, and also feedback. So let's start with judges. First of all, how did you choose who to get on the panel this year?
Shall I answer this?
Yeah, you answer that.
So I basically made a list of like everybody who I really admire and respect in the industry, and was like, what would my dream judging panel be? And when we wrote the list, we were kind of talking about different specialities within pet photography, because it's all well and good having 16 judges, but if all 16 judges only know dog photography, then it's not really a pet photography awards. So people who know horses and birds and exotic pets, people who shoot cats, people who shoot indoors, outdoors, with lighting, with natural light, people who make composite work, people who more from a like traditional purist kind of angle. So we just put together a list of our dream people, and we just contacted them, and were amazed that everybody said yes.
Yep, every single one of them that we asked said yes, and we were blown away by that. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So yeah, should I tell you who they are?
Yes, go on. Give a big shout out to
Read the list, Craig.
I'm going to read the list, right? So we have Alex Kearns from Australia. We have Alice Loader, Alicia Zimslowska, Belinda Richards, Charlotte and I. We have Diana London from the USA, Elka Vogelsang, Jess McGovern, Joe Howell, Karen Alsop, Kaylee Greer from Dog Breath, Marika Conrad, Nicole Begley, Sam Haddix, and Travis Paternode. So some very exciting names in that. Well, not some very exciting names in that list. They are all very exciting names in that list. Yeah.
And you're not
I actually
joking
feel
about
a
the
bit
variety
starstruck
as
being
well.
amongst all of these other
same. We're gonna be holding judges training shortly, and I'm actually quite nervous about having all of these people on a call because like they're all like rock star dog photographers, and
that's awesome, you guys.
Yeah.
And you're not joking that you managed to really cover a really wide range of specialties there. I mean, you've got Alex who does studio, Marika,
and Alex also photographs all sorts of exotic animals too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Travis as well, studio. Alice, who does like that beautiful kind of moody look. I mean, a whole range in there. Some of them are returning judges as well, so that's exciting to see. Yeah. We've had some of those names on the panel before.
And just the different parts of the world where people are from and different styles that they shoot in as well. So, we want to make this a really international event and cover every kind of aspect of pet photography, all styles, and just really expand on what you guys had already created and really, encourage art from all walks of life.
Just make it a truly international competition, basically.
Yeah, fantastic. Totally makes sense. I mean, I love the direction you're going. Now, 16 judges, that's huge. I mean, we used to have 5, I think 6 last year, but 16. So I'm imagining that's because of feedback. Is it correct?
Yeah, so we definitely wanted a lot of judges. We also wanted to make sure that because a lot of the people that entering are people who are our students. So through Unleashed Education and, workshops and mentoring, that kind of thing. So we need to be able to abstain from judging images that we're already familiar with. We thought that was quite an important part. Yeah. So having that huge pool of judges to draw from, it means that you're going to get 5 sets of fresh eyes on your work, which is amazing. Plus the feedback. So each image also receives 2 pieces of written feedback. So 2 judges will provide written feedback on every single image. And we included that some competitions make you pay extra for feedback. We feel so strongly about the power of feedback that we wanted to include it as standard for every single entry. So you can opt out, but most people choose not to because, I mean, it's just so good to know what the judges are thinking, because I think that's a lot of the time you enter a competition and you're just not sure like why it scored the way it did, and you might have
so much, doesn't it?
Yeah, you might have in your head that it's an absolutely fantastic image and it just doesn't go anywhere, and you're like, but I want to know why. So we're hoping to kind of remove the mystery from the judging process and just really, I mean, even when you enter some other awards, some of the the bigger awards like the Australian and the American Photography Association awards, you're not always guaranteed feedback. Even live judging, they may not talk about your image. And I always find it a little bit frustrating when they don't. So I just think it's so nice to be able to provide that for everyone, so everyone gets feedback.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited that you guys have brought that in this year. Last year was the first year I think that we brought in feedback, and it was an optional add-on. And we were really surprised because Caitlin and I just thought, a few people will want that. And so many people opted for that, which became a huge task, as you guys know. And it was totally unexpected. And that really showed to us like, they do, the entrants do understand that it's a valuable thing. And so to see that you guys have made it included from the beginning totally makes sense. And I agree with you 100% about entering awards where you don't get the feedback compared to when you do. It really changes the experience. I mean, if you're entering awards like ours used to be, where like these used to be, where there is no feedback, the only real reason to enter is to win, because it's not really educational in the end. So it's a fun thing to win, or maybe get into a short list or something like that. But you can't make it overly educational if all you're seeing is a score, and only our members ever saw scores. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, like when I entered the APA, for example, and few of my images, or I entered 4, and 1 didn't get discussed at all, and the other 3 did because they got debated and moved up or down or whatever. And the one that didn't, you're right, I was bummed. I was like, but I didn't know what you guys were thinking, like why it did well or didn't do well, or, you know, whatever. And so I know, like, just comparing that experience in the one in that particular awards, which was it's a print comp. Yeah, it was just such a difference even between those images, between if it was discussed or not. And the amount of learning from hearing a expert panel discuss your particular image is huge. And I know you're doing it a slightly different way, but to have written feedback, I think that's even more valuable. So I really love that you guys have turned this into a full educational experience for everybody. That's awesome. Also helps to justify the price as well, because, you know, the awards used to be free. And as I said at the very beginning of this episode, it was a huge undertaking I know firsthand, to do these awards. I know you guys have made it even bigger and better, and so it's even more work for you guys. And the entire reason that I'm not able to continue doing it is because I literally cannot give 6 months of my life to running a free event. And so when I saw you guys made it paid, I mean, of course you have to. It's the only way to actually run it properly, to do it justice like you guys are, and to take these awards to the next level. But to include the feedback in those entry cost, I guess you call it, I think makes it 100% worth it. I mean, just getting the individual feedback is already worth the price. So let's talk about the cost of entry and why you actually decided to do it, because that's just me assuming. So yeah, maybe you guys can talk more about that. How much actually is it, and why did you introduce that price tag?
Do you want me to go, Charlotte?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So well, we introduce costs because it's costing a lot to run this awards. And, we have 16 judges who are being paid for their time. We have lots of overheads with judging systems and developers designing software specifically for us to be able to judge this in the way that we need it to be judged, to make it as fair as possible. So yeah, we have to compensate for that. We are also giving cash prizes this year, which is a first for the awards as well. So the overall photographer of the year will win $500, and each of the 5 category winners will get $250 plus trophies as well. So there are costs associated, not even thinking about the amount of time that Charlotte and I put into it, which you've mentioned about how time consuming that is a couple of times already. But yeah, we truly believe that the value is in the feedback from these incredible judges that we've got on board, and that's worth it alone. A lot of these people will be charging a hell of a lot more for mentoring if they were, if you were to approach them on a one-on-one basis. So yeah, so entries are open now until the 30th of June. And if you enter a single image, it's $25. So this is US dollars. You can enter 5 images for $100, 10 images for $180, and 20 images for $320. So the more entries you buy, the cheaper it gets. So anything ranging from $25 for that one image to $16 for a pack of 20. And yeah, you can enter 20 images. Or 22 images, I should say. Shouldn't I, Charlotte, really? Because you can enter up to 22. And yeah, it's really down to each entrant how many entries they want to buy. But yeah.
The pricing that we kind of decided on is also pretty much internationally sort of industry standard for this kind of, or this style of competition. So we didn't just pluck a number out of the air. It was fairly well researched. So most competitions that you enter of this format are around the same sort of price. Often they will charge extra for feedback too.
Yeah, most of them
they might
do.
end up more expensive for each entry at the end of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
What I love is that actually, you've you have kept it quite accessible. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all photographers, which means we all had enough money to somehow come up with a camera and a lens, if not multiple lenses, a computer, Photoshop subscription, and so on. I mean, it's not like you're asking thousands of dollars to enter these awards. Of course, it's you know, it can be tough for some people at different times, and of course, everyone is aware of that. But even having the option that they can just choose to enter one, I think that makes it, you know, super accessible. It's not like you've made it that it's a minimum of 10 and X amount of money for that. You know, I remember entering APA where it would cost me over $1,000 each year because you had to print, you had to pay for entries. Yep. It was crazy expensive. And then also if you wanted to go to the awards night, then you had to get a dress. And it was like, gosh, I was just starting out my business. I was like, can I even afford this? Anyway, and yet still entered and I still thought it was worth it. So with your award, with the awards today, how you guys are doing them, I love that you've made it really educational. I love that the judges are being paid for their time. You mentioned that very briefly earlier. And I think that's fabulous because that's something we weren't able to do. And I always wished we could have because it is a lot to ask of the judges.
Yeah.
And especially the way you're doing it now with all the feedback, it's a lot of time and it's only fair that they get paid a small, you know, something at least to show appreciation. I don't know what your payment is like, but there's something there for
basically.
them.
Yeah. And I think, you know, all the changes that we've made, I think when people see the changes, see the information on the website, all of that stuff, like I think it becomes pretty obvious that, you know, it could not continue to be free. So
no
way.
You just couldn't have it.
We've got new categories. A new category this year. We're doing the award ceremony live in Las Vegas at the Shutterhound conference that Kaylee and Sam are putting on. So, you know, there's lots of really cool stuff happening that, we hope will just keep the growth of this in a upwards trajectory every year on year. Yeah. I don't actually know. I'm worried about next year now because I don't know what we're going to do to improve again. So
nice.
We've got some ideas.
Speaking of the categories, the scoring, the actual awards, let's just dive into that before we wrap up because we haven't spoken about it at all really. And I know that you have added a new category, renamed a category, scoring is completely different. And of course, you mentioned earlier there's cash prizes, but there's also trophies and this kind of thing. So let's dive into that a little bit. First of all, tell us, what are the categories this year?
Okay, so do you have them up there, Craig?
Yep. I have them in my head anyway.
Hey, I know them.
We have got the portrait category, which is continuing on from previous years, along with the pets and people category and the open category, which is now called creative. And then we've also got the action category. So those 4 categories essentially are the same as previous years, aside from open has now been renamed creative. And our new category this year is a documentary category.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
We've seen some incredible photographers doing some awesome work in the dog sport arena, in animal advocacy spaces, and that's a style of photography I think certainly in the pet photography world that doesn't really get a lot of recognition. So we wanted to bring some attention to the amazing work that people are doing in that space as well. So so we're excited about that new category and
Awesome. No, that's cool. I'm excited that you introduced that. It's something we also spoke about last year, I think it was, that, you know, those images, like you just mentioned, they don't quite fit into any of the other categories. And so they would maybe not get entered in the first place, or if they would, it was hard to judge them based on that category. So to give a unique category for that, that's great. I'm really excited to see that. Do you want to you kind of dived into what people could enter into that category, but one of you want to also give some kind of, I don't know, insight into how maybe an entrant could choose or could work out which is the best category for their image? Because that's a question we used to get all the time. You know, like, does it go better in creative or portrait, for example, or when should it go into this one and when should it go into that one? So maybe you guys want to just give a little bit of overview as to how that works.
So I think the biggest thing really is the editing rules. So we've brought in some editing rules for each category. Basically, there's sort of two different types of editing. So there's faithful editing. So with the faithful editing, basically it kind of excludes images that have been created using composite techniques. So anything that's been created using a composite technique, there's a combination of multiple images that needs to go into creative, because the other categories, so portrait, action, pets and people, and documentary, you're not actually allowed to enter composite images into those categories. So that's a pretty easy one, I guess. I mean, obviously, if there's humans included, you're probably best to put that into pets and people. That's going to fit into that one better. Action's pretty straightforward. The documentary editing rules are also a little bit different. Craig, they're a bit more
it's a little bit more specialized. So documentary images shouldn't be staged and orchestrated. They should be kind of organically created, shot as seen. And therefore, you're a little bit more limited to the types of editing that you can do on documentary images. So you can't do head swaps, for example, which you can do in the faithful editing categories. So for portrait, for action, for pets and people, you could do a head swap. But for documentary, you can't. You can still do cropping. You can remove like sensor spots and dirt and things like that. And you can do some dodging and burning and those kind of things, but pretty purist in terms of editing techniques on the documentary category.
So kind of like, what you could do in the darkroom basically is what you can enter in documentary, and anything
pretty much
so.
So just no elements of compositing or anything like that in documentary.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think
we are quite realistic with the faithful editing. So we do, as Craig mentioned, we do allow head swaps, we allow exposure stacking, we allow leash removal and collar removal, and anything that you want to do that's in relation to keeping the animal safe as you're photographing it. So those sorts of things are allowed in the faithful editing. If you did want to check that out on the website, just go to the page called Entry Information and have a look at the editing rules. So it's all laid out
all
there,
the rules
what you can and can't do for each category.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So that's the rules. I guess we should probably mention the awards, I guess, too, right there. How we're earning how you're earning awards with your images and the scoring and things.
Yeah, let's start with scoring, actually, Craig, because at the moment we've got quite a good picture now, like what's going to get entered where, that they're going to get feedback and all of this kind of thing. But how are they scored? Because I know you've completely flipped it upside down. It's more in line with traditional competition now. So you guys, let us know exactly what you're looking for and how they're going to get judged.
Yeah. So we have a list of judging criteria that we will be going through. As I said, we've got the judges training coming up soon. So the judges will be trained on how to use the system, but also what to look for in terms of creativity, originality, emotional response, technical skills, composition, light, appropriate use of techniques, all of those different things that make up an image and make an image awesome. So that's what the scores will be based on. And we've just switched the scoring up to a score out of 100. So like you said, a little bit more in line with a lot of other awards and competitions out there. And so within each scoring range, you will actually win an award at some level if you reach a certain score. So we're not going to have a top 100 or a top 25 shortlist this year, but you will be awarded for certain scores. So we have a bronze, a silver, a gold, and a platinum award for the images. And if you score, hang on, let me bring up my.
Oh, I've got it here.
You've got
you
the
like,
scores.
Craig.
Yep. You do want to tell the scores, Charlotte?
Yeah, so basically anything higher, any score, and the score, obviously 5 judges will give a score, and then that score is average.
Average between 5, yeah.
Yeah. So the final average
before you go on, Charlotte, are you doing an extra layer of if there is an outlier to have to look at it further, or it's just a straight out average to keep it simple?
Yeah, there's not going to be like challenges or anything like that. And that would be that's too hard for this first year. That's something
also
we might look at in future, but
it would be really lovely in the long term to do live judging.
Yeah, we'd love to do live judging.
I think that sort of format lends itself to be able to do that sort of model where you have challenges and people can talk up the score amongst the group of judges. But yeah, we're just keeping it pretty simple this first time we're doing it.
No, totally get it. Like, I'm already impressed with how much you guys have added to the awards. So yeah, don't worry. I probably was pushing it a bit much, even asking.
We did consider live judging, and we did think about, is it possible to actually do judging at Shutterhound and all of these things? And yeah, it's maybe next year. Maybe it's definitely something on our radar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, can you just, before you go ahead then, just give us a bit more clarity with the judging? So is it like a certain amount of points towards each of those criteria you just said, or is it an overall that the judge makes a decision? Like, they look, considering all of those things, and decide, okay, 82 or 78 or whatever?
Yeah, so the judges, the score will be at the judge's discretion. There's not a breakdown of you get 10 points for this, 10 points for that, or anything like that. It's based on the overall image and how the judge kind of sees the image, what those criteria have been met, and their emotional response and how they feel and things like that. So I think the thing with any of these kind of awards is that there is an element of emotion involved. It is art at the end of the day, and that is subjective. And I think that's why, having 5 judges per image and taking an average of those judges' scores is probably the fairest way to do it, because, we all come from different walks of life and we all see art differently. We all have different opinions of different things. So getting multiple judges to score an image and coming up with an average, I think is the fairest way, I think, to get a result for each image. Yeah.
Now, Charlotte, you were actually on a really good roll before and I interrupted you.
Okay.
So I'll let you continue, sorry.
Okay, great. So the average final score that someone receives for an image will be between 0 and 100. So anything from 50 to 64, we would count as below professional standard. From 65 to 74, we count as professional standard, a professional standard image. Then we start getting into the awards. So from 75 to 79 is counted as a bronze award. From 80 to 89 is silver. From 90 to 94 is gold. And then 95 and above is platinum. Cool. So once you receive the score, you'll basically receive the corresponding award. We will be giving you badges that can be placed onto the image so entrants can share their achievements.
That's awesome. I know there was a little bit of confusion at first. Maybe people hadn't read quite, everything on the page yet or whatever to quite understand that. So that's awesome that you've clarified. I know there were some people saying, but I was excited to win the top 25 shortlist or top 100. But in this way, it's almost like more likely that you'll have a badge because, if it's more than, 75? If you score more than 75, then, you'll have a bronze badge.
There's no limit on the number of awards we'll be giving out. So if any image scores above that 75 marker, then it's an awarded image.
And it's almost like each image is awarded based on its own merits rather than being, I guess, compared to other images, more of an individual sort of thing for each image, which I think is, it's a lot more freeing, I suppose, when it comes to the images being awarded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we should talk about the actual category wins and how people win the categories and the overall and that as well, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Each image will be scored and receive a score. And then for each category, the top 10 images for each category, so the 10 highest scoring images in each category, will be rejudged. So they will be the finalists for that category, which we'll be announcing in advance. And then those 10 images will be rejudged by fresh eyes, and winner will be decided between those top 10s for each category.
Sorry, is the winner decided based on who has the highest scoring? image then?
No. So the top 10 highest scoring images in each category will then be finalists for that category. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the highest scoring image will be the winner. So they will then go into a judge off and they will be rejudged, and a winner will be decided on rejudging. Again, in a similar way to most of the awards in the industry are done at the moment. So that is how each category will be decided. And then the category winners will receive a trophy, a certificate, and $250. And then to win the overall title of International Pet Photographer of the Year, we will be taking the people who have got the the cumulative highest scores from their top 5 images. I've got to spit it out now. So cumulative scores from their top 5 entries. So basically, to win the overall title, you will need to enter at least 5 images. But you only need to enter 1 if you're going for like a category win, for example. But to win the overall prize, 5 images. And again, we will be announcing the finalists for that. And those 5 images for each of the finalists will be going into a judge off where they will be rejudged as a portfolio of 5 images. And then a winner will be decided. And I think it's really important here to say that the portfolio of images, they do not need to be consistent or all look the same or, have the same editing or the same color scheme or, anything like that. They will just need to be 5 awesome images. And if you're one of the 5 highest scoring people in the categories anyway, then you're obviously going to have a pretty decent image to start with. So, yeah. So we're not looking for consistency of the look or the style of the images across the board. Yeah.
And they can be from different categories. So they could, their top 5 images may all be from the same category. They may be spread across multiple categories. So, we might have a winner who's entered, 1 in each, or they might be all portrait images. So it's based on the individual scores of the image rather than the categories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a bit different. That's new. So that's exciting. Cool.
Yeah.
Now.
And the winner gets $500, a certificate and a trophy. And we will be presenting them at Shutterhound live in Las Vegas. So it would be really awesome if the winners were in the room.
That'd be
so
fantastic.
Get your tickets to Shutterhound, people.
Nice. All right, guys, that's cool. Is there anything else that we need to know that maybe we haven't covered yet? Because we've gone through quite a lot now. We've discussed, the background of the awards, the judging lineup, which is incredible, the cost, the feedback, the actual category scorings, and what you can win. Have we missed anything that's new
I'm just looking at my list of what's new, so we can.
Something that I would like to. Something that I would like to probably mention at this point, and only because within the last week it's kind of blown up in the photography world, is AI.
Yep, absolutely.
So Photoshop's new generative fill, currently in beta, it's going to be in the actual version of Photoshop really soon. It's going to make it really easy for people to incorporate elements into images that were not originally captured by them. So we do have a rule that images may not use this new AI technology, generative fill, or any other programs used to incorporate elements not originally captured by the photographer. And that's competition wide. That's across all categories, even including the composite creative category. All elements need to be created by the photographer.
Okay, so
themselves.
Let's just break it down a little bit. So, for example, if I wanted to have a texture over my image, I would have to photograph that texture and then apply it in whatever processing way. I cannot purchase an already created texture. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's exactly correct.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's
Every
awesome.
single element incorporated in the image needs to be an original capture by you as a photographer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And things like text and anything like that needs to be photographic based as well. So there's no reason why you can't put text on an image, but that text needs to be photographed in some way to be able to be incorporated. You can't just write text on the image in Photoshop and submit. So every element must be photographic and every element must be created by the photographer.
within the
Now-
time frame.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. So
Oh,
it all has to have been created within the last 5 years as well.
Now, that's a great rule, I think. And I also saw that it must be entered for the first time. Is that correct?
Yep, that's another rule.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah,
Why did you guys do that? Devil's
I'll let you
advocate.
answer that, Craig.
I know why you did it, but I think we should talk about it.
Okay, couple of reasons why we have introduced a 5-year rule. First of all, it does seem to be something that is fairly standard in awards, but that's, we want to make this awards unique anyway, so that's not really a major consideration. The biggest consideration, I think, is that, this is art and photography, and this process changes. We grow as photographers non-stop. We're always learning. There's always new techniques we can try. And so we want you to be creating work that is new and fresh. And we don't want to encourage you going through your archives from a decade ago and going, I might stick this one in the awards this year. That's been sitting on my hard drive for, we want this to represent what is happening in the industry now. So being able to enter new work that is fairly recent within the last 5 years, I think keeps everything fresh. It keeps people wanting to create, going out and pushing their own boundaries. And I mean, maybe you want to go out and shoot specifically to enter the awards. Maybe you're entering client work, but having it be of images that are newer from your collections and your Lightroom catalogs and whatever, I think is the most important thing that I think that's why we came to that decision, is to make it fresher and current. Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, it's the International Pet Photographer of the Year Awards.
So, you've got to think about like people who are making composites and things as well, where they do build their own stock libraries of textures and things. You might want to use a texture that's 5 years old on an image that you shot last week, and you might not have the opportunity to always go out and shoot new textures. So, you can still incorporate things like that into composite work and things as well. So
yeah, we didn't want to be too restrictive. Some competitions have a 2 or even 3 year limit, but yeah, we thought 5 was pretty generous. So
yeah.
No, I think it's great. I mean, it's a good balance because, like you said, you want it fresh, you want new content. Yeah, you want people to push themselves. That's the whole point of entering awards. Not just looking back through archives, but at the same time, like you said, there might be an element that you're going to include that is shot, earlier on, or maybe you're entering something that's from a trip that you did and you can't just go and redo that trip again, and it's the most amazing image. So at least 5 years allows for something like that. Speaking of trips, actually, a couple more rules I'd like to run by. The first one is that one. What about images that were taken at workshops?
Okay, so this is definitely a pretty important rule. So we feel that the images should be the work of the photographer. And often when you're in a workshop or a retreat, that sort of situation, you are being directed, supervised, taught. There is input from an outside source to allow you to create that image. So we basically wanted to make sure that it's all the photographer's work and it's not sort of influenced overly by other people. Also, when you're working in a retreat and in that sort of situation, like we both run retreats, we know what can happen. When you're in a group shooting situation, there can be very similar images taken by multiple people. So we wanted to sort of rule out that happening.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
We just had that from an entrance point of view as well. If you've got an image taken at the same place at the same time, but from a slightly different angle of one dog, the first time a judge sees that, it doesn't matter whose image it is. The first time the judge sees it, it might be quite impactful. But then if you then see that similar kind of image again in 10 images time, it's not going to be as impactful because the judges have just seen it. So you're probably not going to score as well as the person whose image came up first, even if your image might even be better than theirs, because it's not going to be new and exciting and fresh. So it would have less impact when judges see it. So from the entrance point of view, I think that's a really important consideration too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We actually, or I had a rule, and both the retreats so far and all the future ones as well, anyway, that we said from the retreat point of view that any images created at the retreat should not be entered into any awards. I knew that because of hosting awards.
Yeah.
Unless you completely created the image yourself. If you took the dog away, you found the lighting location, you found the background, you worked with the dog one-on-one, there was no influence from anybody else, then it's your image. But if, you know, anybody else had any kind of impact on your image, you know, somebody helped you pose it, somebody did the lighting, somebody chose the background, etc., then it's, as far as we were saying, then it's not 100% your image. And so, you know, even using it like, you know, on your socials and stuff should always be said that it was taken at a retreat, because it's not fair on your clients. That's the kind of the very strong opinion that I have around this topic, because exactly like you said, you know, hosting the awards in the past, we would see images come up. We had a rule also, the same rule, that you had to have created the image yourself, but still people would enter and you'd see the same image come up, like you just said, Craig, from 3 different angles. And it was like, oh, okay, so these guys were all at a workshop together. So
yeah.
their image.
And I think it just goes back to, you know, we don't allow any AI. We don't allow any images that are not created by the entrant in composite work or otherwise. So in the creation process of the image, then it makes sense that we don't allow anything from workshops, because that is not all the photographer's own work and their own ideas either. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that what we're seeing is truly each photographer and, you know, the essence of what they do and put into their work.
Yeah, fabulous. Now, speaking of rules, there was just one other that caught my eye that I was very happy to see back again, which was about safety. So do you guys want to go into that a little bit further? I think it's really important. And I think it's just, I mean, we've got this platform to discuss safety now anyway. And I think the awards is a great way to encourage it further, because you guys would see it as well. I see it too, not a lot, but enough that, you know, there are images that are being put out into the world that aren't really very safe for the dog or the person. And to have this opportunity to discuss that a little bit further, I think is quite important. So tell me about this safety rule.
So yeah, when it comes to unsafe situations, I'm thinking of a particular example. I'm just going to pull this one and just use this one as an example, is railway tracks. So I think most people can probably agree that railway tracks is probably not a particularly safe environment for anything other than a train, really. So dogs on railway tracks, not very safe. We do have people that photograph dogs on railway tracks, and they argue that it was safe because the tracks were decommissioned, or perhaps it's some sort of model railway that only runs on weekends. There's often a variety of reasons why they might deem it safe. However, that is, when you look at it, it's promoting unsafe practices as a whole. The person looking at the image doesn't know that the railway tracks were decommissioned. They get the idea and they think, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to go photograph dogs on railway tracks. So we're basically trying to avoid that whole scenario of perpetuating these kinds of images that can potentially result in, you know, loss of life even. So those sorts of situations are ones that we are definitely not going to be accepting in the images that are submitted for the awards.
Okay, great. Exactly right. You know, I mean, we cannot be putting, even if it's the most incredible image in the world and it is on a, you know, decommissioned track, etc., as that example, I certainly don't want to see that as the, you know, on the category winner of portrait, for example, and then spreading the message to everybody else that this, you know, to not worry about it, that it's totally fine, everything is safe. You know, I think there are many other examples that we could talk about, and I know you've listed some in the rules, so make sure, guys, you can go and have a read through and just double check, but also just, you know, use your own common sense. Like, okay, was this safe? Yes, it was. Does everybody else know that it's safe without being there? And then you can make the decision from there. I imagine the same rule goes for also the safety of the dog in terms of like reducing stress and this kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, again, that's one thing I think is quite unique with this awards platform, is that we are looking for safety. We are looking at the body language of the animals in, you know, in the images, that the dogs are comfortable and don't look really stressed out. You know, if you're gonna pose a dog with its newborn human baby brother or sister, that, you know, it doesn't look like the dog is going to just bite somebody in a minute. You know, it's not safe necessarily to do that. So all of those things will be taken into consideration. We have, like we talked about, train tracks. There are some other safety issues that we don't allow into the awards. So train tracks, powder shots, and really anything that is an unsafe practice that the subjects of the image, whether that's people or the animals in the images, could be in danger from. So yeah, have a look at the rules on the website and make sure you're familiar with all of that. So yeah, it's really about the animals and celebrating animals and not putting them in danger. The risk with that, of course, is that somebody else will see an image that's won an award and that perpetuates a trend or starts off something. And, you know, when people see other people be successful, they go, oh, I want to try this out for myself. And then they go and put a dog on a train track, but maybe it's a live train track and, you know, things can go wrong. So,
and especially sorry, Craig, especially for, you know, up and coming photographers, emerging photographers. We also have young people following along on this kind of thing. I mean, I remember seeing train track shots when I was in school studying photography. I was 16 years old and I was like so confused about it. Like, oh, that's random. Why do you want to stand on a train track for a portrait? And then eventually it was very trendy back then. And I saw so many that I was like, I should do that, you know? And I actually thought like, that would be cool eventually, you know, 17-year-old me. It changes over time. And, you know, it's not just young people, you know, if you're new to the industry or whatever it might be, or you've just seen so many that it becomes normal. So, you know, exactly, we do have a responsibility, especially, you know, as hosts of the awards, you guys have the responsibility as well to avoid encouraging that kind of thing. So I'm really glad that you've stayed, you know, strong with that, and it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And, you know, there are so many other amazing backdrops or ways to become creative without putting anybody at risk. And we've seen that, you know, year on year, time and time again, how amazing, you know, photographers are in terms of creativity. And that's exactly what the awards is all about, isn't it? Just pushing that to the next level.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah,
I'm, for one, very excited to see this year's winners and as many images as get shown around. I can't wait to see them all. So when do entries, they're already open, when do they close, and when can we expect to get some updates in terms of scores and this kind of thing?
Okay, so award entries are open until June 30th at 5 p.m. Australian time. That is the deadline for your entries. Then we will be going through the judging process through most of August, probably, depending on how many entries come in. We will be announcing the finalists of the categories and for the overall Pet Photographer of the Year title on September the 1st. The awards ceremony will be live at Shutterhound Conference in Las Vegas at the Mirage Hotel at the closing of the conference on September the 7th. And all of the winners and everything will be online shortly after that. And then the entrants will have received all of their scoring, all of their feedback, and all of their badges for their images no later than September the 10th.
There we go.
So that's a time. So that timeline is also on the website. So make sure you go and have a look and see that timeline too. There's a lot going on in there.
That is busy in September for you.
Yeah.
Nice.
We have a busy September.
Very busy.
Yeah,
September,
August and September. Yeah.
For sure. Now, you guys, actually, for the listeners, as you guys all know, normally these episodes are released as two halves. The first half that goes out to the public through Spotify, iTunes, whatever your favorite podcast listener is, and you can listen to the first half free anywhere on the go. The second half gets released only to our members. It's also in your favorite podcast player using your private RSS feed link. This week, or this episode, because it does, it kind of, all the information goes out to everybody. Everybody needs to hear it. We didn't want to, you know, segment just half for members, half for listeners, etc., free listeners, etc. So this entire episode is going out to everybody. If you are a member, though, we have a bit of a bonus for you, because I wanted, you know, didn't want to just jib you of your benefit for this week. And so Craig and Charlotte very kindly offered us up 10. Actually, maybe you guys want to go into the details so I don't mess it up. 10 coupons. Okay, go on.
Okay, so yeah, we're providing 10 free entry codes, and that will entitle you to a free entry. So you'll just need to follow the links on the International Pet Photographer of the Year website and register for an account, and then you'll just be able to enter this code and redeem your free entry. So this is regardless of whether you've already bought entries or you haven't bought any yet. You'll be able to redeem that free entry. They're all single-use codes too. So once they're used, that's it.
All right. And it is one per person, and there's only 10 available. So if you've been thinking of entering, or you've got one extra image that you hadn't entered but you're wanting to and you haven't got around to it yet, this is your opportunity. It's for members only. So I'm going to send out the details in the members Facebook group. So check in there. You'll have to contact me to grab your code. It's one per person, maximum of 10. So jump on it. Don't hesitate. And most of all, for all of you listening, good luck. Remember to, you know, this is about growth. This is about education. This is about celebrating the industry. So have a go. You know, you're going to get feedback regardless. And I encourage you all to, submit your best images from the last 5 years.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks so much, Kirsty. We're very grateful for your continued support in this. And
I'm grateful for you guys for taking it on. So before we wrap up, guys, just let the listeners know exactly where they should go. What is the web link for the awards nowadays?
Okay, so there's a brand new website for this year, and it is petphotography.awards.com. Nice and simple. So if you visit that website, that's got all of the information that you need on there, all the entry information about the judges, a link so that you can actually go and create an account and upload and manage your images. It's also got information about the past winners, and there's a few tutorials on there that we've created to help you prepare your images and also check your images before submitting to make sure they meet all the criteria. So there's a ton of information on that website, petphotography.awards.com.
Easy. Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. And for the listener, good luck.
Yeah,
yep,
good luck. I cannot wait to see your incredible work. And we'll see you in Las Vegas,
awesome.
That's okay.